Oh, wow. Welcome back to the Magna Marvelous YouTube channel, everyone. Today we're going to stall the motorcycle and talk about one of my favorite towns. What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Magna Marvelous YouTube channel. So today is day one of our video series. This is the entrance, well, it's part of the entrance to the town of Springfield, Vermont. It is one of the oldest townships of the United States. This town was granted its township. This was back when Vermont wasn't called Vermont, but actually a New Hampshire grant. The leaves are changing, and I decided to hop on the opportunity. If you're a leaf peeper, hello, leave a comment down below, subscribe if you'd like, and this is what you're all here for. These beautiful colors. You think of the word fall, autumn, or just like, you know, Halloween, like that vibe. The image that comes to your mind is probably Vermont, and you don't even know about it yet. So this is the official entrance to the town of Springfield. Let's go in order here. We're going to stop at some sites, and I'm going to tell you some trivia. It was around since before Vermont was called the Republic of Vermont, which was its own country at one point. It was a sovereign state. The people that live in Vermont kind of have that mentality anyways. We don't call it that. A lot of people don't actually even know the history of Vermont that live here. That is what happened at some point. Oh, wow, these colors are so beautiful. First stop, the Eureka Schoolhouse. Now this is an important site because for a while this was pretty much what education looked like in Vermont. Many of you knew that one-room schoolhouses did exist in the United States. Some of them still do. As you can see, here's one. This is a legitimate one-room schoolhouse. There is no bathroom. You went in the woods. This is where you did all of your K through 12 learning, or I guess back in the day, I guess it was like 1st grade through 8th grade. For those of you that are new here, this is my Honda Magna. I'm Manny Marvelous. We release videos on Mondays called Magna Mondays, and it's me on this bike making videos like this for you. Those of you that don't know what the Magna is, click up here. There's videos about it, and if you like it, subscribe. If you don't like it, subscribe. I'll make some other content as well. Here's a map of Springfield. As you can see, Springfield is a river town. And when Springfield was given its township, it had really good land for farming. However, this river right next to the main road made this into a mill town, which really helped with Springfield's economy back in the day. We're right here. This is Springfield, Vermont. This is all of Vermont. I went to school in Castleton University, which is right over here. This bike looks way better with tires that are actually inflated now. It behaves. Being that Springfield went from being a farm town to being a mill town in the Industrial Revolution really changed up the GDP of this town. This used to be a very good and respectable town. In fact, it still has things about it that are good and respectable. One of it is the air quality. If you have a lot of allergies and stuff, that's probably the biggest problem you'll have here, but in no way is there a pollution problem here. I digress. This is the new addition to the old building known as the James and Lamson Tool Company, which is this building right here. As you can see, it's a little decrepit, it's run down, hasn't been used in forever. So that building exists because of the pit stop we're about to make. What we see, you know what, let's break the law and trespass just a little bit here. Anyways, this river that you see right here is called the Black River. It's the reason why we have that James and Lamson Tool Company. Now, interesting thing about that company is that it was helped into fruition by a man. James Hartness was a mechanical engineer from Vermont. He was also, I think, the 48th governor of Vermont. This guy was a man's man. He did a lot of stuff for his town. He was an American industrialist. So during 1888, the James and Lamson building was erected, and it was moved over from the town of Windsor, Vermont. So this is the backside of the James and Lamson building. Back in 1888 was very important to Springfield because this was basically, you know, the factory work. If you wanted to work in Springfield, Vermont and make a living and have your family and grow up here, this is where you usually worked. And for several years after that, this was the income for the town. Sorry, we have a photo opportunity here. So yeah, that's where people made most of their money for several years after 1888. The next thing that I gotta show you, this brick building. This is Lovejoy Tool Company. Lovejoy is another one of those tool companies that is home to Vermont, and get this one's gonna be really surprising to all of you. You ready? Lovejoy, Black River. All of these were connected to a mill, a water mill, which would turn the machines inside the factories. Oh, wow. Now here, we're entering downtown Springfield. That's a Masonic temple. This is the more contemporary area in our town. And this is also where the big hand with the donut used to be. But we hid that away because that's not really a good thing to be advertising. We have one last tool company. This building to my left right here that is pretty much dead on the water, and it's right next to a waterfall, is called, well, it used to be called Fellows Gear Shapers. Both of those were pivotal to Springfield's machining. In fact, in World War II, Springfield used to make cannon barrels for the battleships of the United States, and that is what landed Springfield on Hitler's hit list for bombing. I think it was number 49 of 50. The airport is where we're going to right now, because Industrial Revolution would be nothing without aviation. And Mr. Hartness, who helped with the industrializing of this town, helped create the two first airstrips that we had in Vermont. One of them is in this town, and it's called Hartness Airport. Are those geese? Are those real? Oh yeah, those are. Subscribe if you want to see me get in a fight with some geese. Hartness State Airport, the first airport in Vermont, made it 100 years ago. Wow! I didn't even know that! See, we're learning together here, folks. So 100 years ago, this was the first airport in Vermont. Wow! You just can't say no to these sunsets here. Look at that. So, the Spirit of St. Louis, which is the airplane on this plaque right here, flew here, landed here. Charles Lindbergh, 1927. He visited with the Spirit of St. Louis, which is the plane that he was flying. 1941, this was also a home airport for the 1st Vermont Civil Air Patrol Squadron. It says that right on the plaque there. And this plaque was made in 1992, which, fun fact, is 2 years older than I am. Let's just sit down for a second here. So this is an interesting place to be at because my father used to take me here a lot as a kid. And, I actually spread his ashes here just over 10 years ago. He flew a V-tailed Bonanza, which I've mentioned a couple times in my videos before. Not that he flew them, but that I like those planes, and that's kind of why, because he flew them. My father taught me a lot. The first time I ever rode a motorcycle was a old gold edition Yamaha Virago 1200 or 1100, I think it was 1100, and that was back when we lived in North Carolina, and my father put me on his lap while we were riding. I remember being so scared of this giant bicycle with this big burly engine. Springfield went through the Great Depression as well, but because it was such an industrious town, it actually didn't get hit that bad. It was just, you know, it just happened to be the thing that was happening at the time. That right there is called Hawks Mountain. After the Second World War, there was a World War II bomber was flying in and was supposed to be landing in Boston. It was actually a horrible rainy night here. They were flying IFR, and back then IFR was a very dangerous thing because the instruments back then do not even remotely scale up to the instrumentation we have in aviation today. They were trying to have an emergency landing here in Hartness Airport. They overshot it by just a mile, and they were flying just a little bit too low because they wanted to land. The conclusion of that story was they landed for sure on Hawks Mountain, but they did not land with their landing gear, and it was not a landing strip, and no one survived. In fact, about 5-6 years ago, I went hiking up this mountain and I found one of the radial engines. It was really creepy to find an airplane engine just lying in the middle of nowhere on a field. Now, if you are watching this video and you want to go look at it, that's fine. You will be going through private property, so make sure you knock on doors and ask people if it's okay if you can hike up there. If you find relics, leave them where they are. There's an honor system up here. That's how Vermont works. So in the 60s, we had the Cold War, and Springfield started to make the schools that we had in the area, I'm going to show you a couple of them right now here pretty soon, into fallout shelters. Not to mention Fellows Gear Shaper, which was the building we saw earlier next to the river. That's also a fallout shelter from the 60s, the Cold War. And across the street, which is where the post office is also a fallout shelter. Right over here, over these trees, is, well, what used to be known as Park Street Elementary School, one of the oldest schools in Springfield. It has a lot of Jeffersonian structure to it, and I love Jeffersonian architecture because it is modeled after, well, my ancestry. It's kind of Greco-Roman. You had this school, people would go to school there, and their parents would work over in this factory over here making cannon barrels. There is our river. There is our clock tower, and right up there, that building you see with the columns is the Fine Arts Center. So this was the house of the governor's daughter, Mr. James Hartness's daughter, which is Helen Hartness Flanders. That was her name. She was a folk musician and a poet and a scholar and a ballad collector. Interesting. I did not know that. And this also has some Jeffersonian structure to it, which is really cool. If you ever come up to Springfield, this is a place that you can rent a room in and sleep in overnight. They also have a restaurant. That was my video on Springfield, Vermont, everyone. Thank you for coming by and watching. I appreciate every single one of you. Stay safe, keep the rubber on the ground, do as many burnouts as you'd like to safely. Stay marvelous. Peace out.